Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's actually morning. Maybe I should have a morning show. Oh, God, that means I'd have to get up early. Anyway, let's read some Nickbeard stories in the morning. So grab your favorite cup of coffee and get comfortable. I know I am.
Okay, buddy, what do you think of Wilkins coffee? I never tasted it. Now, what do you think of Wilkins?
This is from Reddit user Angelicar. I remember you. I liked your other story. This is the story of Kevin. Oh boy. Good morrow, Moonherd. I was so happy when I saw the Lunar Lord himself had made a video about my story, and he seemed to like it, and I really did. I'm really sorry it took me so long to post this. Adult life doesn't leave much time to write internet stories. Though, as I've said before, I've done my best to share this so that my celestial family may graze upon it and find sustenance. Let's get munchin'. P.S. I don't know how to change my username to something less my real name. If anyone could give me tips on how to do that on Reddit, that'd be cool. Call me Ang or Angie. Also, remember spelling is hard. I don't know how you could change your username aside from just making another account. So, I really don't know. I'm going to try to keep this in chronological order, so you can understand how his personality started to show itself. I know this is going to be very long, but I think each of these instances needs to be described in detail and really shows his horrible personality. So in this first part, I wasn't present, but I heard it from Mary. Mary and Kevin met on a dating app. Apparently, Mary wasn't crazy about meeting him at first. She liked talking to him, but really wasn't ready to meet him in person yet. Kevin had other plans and randomly showed up at her job. What the fuck? He didn't tell her that he was coming, and pretty much told her he wasn't going to leave until she agreed to go out with him. Wow. Now, if you see this as a massively colossal red flag, and I do, I am also with you. I told her it was pretty weird for him to do that. I said that it seemed really pushy and like he was forcing her to do something, and I wouldn't go for it if I was her. Her response to my concern was that I didn't know what I was talking about. That him showing up at her job was some kind of romantic gesture that I just didn't get because I'm young and naive. Whatever. I threw up my hands at this and said that she should be careful and left. She ended up calling me a few minutes later and asked if I would go with her on the date. I guess she finally understood what I was saying, and I agreed to go with her. They decided to meet at a Dunkin' Donuts around 9 p.m. We got there first and waited for him to show up. He's 15 minutes late. Not that long, but I figured since he was so pushy, he would have wanted to get there right on time. When I see him for the first time, I really don't know why she agreed to meet with him. He's about 5'6", at least 300 pounds, not very attractive, with an almost shaved head, and just kind of greasy looking. It looked like he just splashed some water on his face to get ready for this first date. I didn't notice any smell, but just thought that she could do so much better than him, physically. I thought I was being a little biased and just wanted to give him a chance. I don't want to judge a book by its cover, after all. Anyway, we all start chatting, and he is very loud and obnoxious right off the bat. All he's talking about is himself, and not really letting us get a word in. Every other word that he said was either weed, guns, or fuck. Both myself and Mary were annoyed by this, although eventually he tells us he has some good stuff in his truck. So we forget how irritated we are and decide to go with him to the truck to smoke. So we're passing around a bowl in the empty Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, and he is controlling the radio. We're talking and joking around, trying to include him in every conversation, but he's more focused on the radio. Long story short, he majorly screws up. He ends up shushing Mary while he wants us to be quiet to listen to a song. Mary was not happy by this. She yells at him for a minute, then pretty much shuts down. And then we leave. This is when he really starts to show his ultra-clingy, dependent personality. You see, Mary decided she wasn't feeling him and didn't want to see him again. At this point, he has known Mary for 2 weeks and only met in person twice, but he goes crazy when she won't answer his calls or texts. In the span of 2 days, he calls her 50 times and leaves too many to count text message and voicemails than you could shake a stick at. Oh, that's not a good sign. I have openly declared that he is insane and said that I'm glad she wasn't going to see him anymore. Well, you can guess how surprised I was when she sent me a text while I was in school saying that she agreed to see him again at his house. There's no sound to this, but I'm just face palming as hard as I can. I was very uncomfortable with this decision, but as we have established in the first story, I was a weak, wiggly worm, so I agreed to go with her. When we get to his house that weekend, we're both honestly pretty impressed with the house. It was in a good, quiet neighborhood with 4 very nice cars parked out front. The yard looked neat and nice, and he met us outside and let us in. And then we saw the nest. The living room was wall to wall, packed with everything from engine parts and tools to clothes and just straight up garbage. There was so much piled up that there were no places to sit, even though there was a huge couch and a love seat and an armchair and a big flat screen TV to watch. Mary and I didn't say anything about the mess as he ushered us upstairs to the attic. That was pretty much a second living room. Except instead of being a hoarder's paradise, it was just messy with dishes and trash laying around. The couch and love seat in that room were so old that the springs were coming out. And there was a computer desk littered with monster cans and moldy dishes. I never went near the computer desk. There were suspicious stains all over the underside and the carpet underneath. He even made the comment that he had to move it from one side of the room to the other because his dad complained that the wall behind it was getting too stained. Oh my God. Neither of us asked him to elaborate. The walls and carpet of the room were destroyed. He said, "Yeah, me and my friends like to shoot my BB gun at the walls. When we don't care about cleaning the rug, we drop something." He said this almost smugly, like we should be impressed. I'm really not liking this guy at this point. He just seems like a big sloppy baby. Mary, though, is feeling the exact opposite. She's beginning to like him. So I unfortunately kept my mouth shut. For the next few visits, we helped him clean up some of the mess, which really meant that Mary said that she won't come over anymore if it wasn't cleaned. The whole time, we were elbow deep in greasy junk while he's whining about not wanting to organize things and actually broke down crying, saying, "I hate cleaning so much. It's so boring and hard. This is all my fault. My dad should help us too." Eventually, even through tears, we got the place looking somewhat decent. We started to spend most of our time there, and I started to notice his privileged life and hygiene habits. He had a pretty good paying job, but still lived above his means. He didn't pay rent, utilities, or even his own car insurance. He had 3 cars, 2 of which he never drove, and put so much money into was ridiculous. Much like all the other useless junk he bought and forgot about, the truck he drove every day his grandmother had bought for him. He had no sense of value for anything. His family always replaced broken things, and he was never held accountable for anything. When I was 18 and I didn't have a car, he said, "Well, there's no excuse for not having a car. Just save money and buy one." Even though at 18 I had twice the responsibilities he did. His hygiene was pretty similar to Mary's in the first story, but his odor was much worse. Like I said, he was a heavy smoker, rarely brushed his teeth. The breath of this man could peel paint, and his teeth were a horrible color of yellow. Although he luckily never had any cavities. Meanwhile, I brush my teeth every day and still have cavities everywhere. He almost never showered. You could smell his ball funk from across the room at times. Oh my God, that's horrifying. He smelled like he had 100 shrimp rotting in dumpster juice in his pants. Ugh. Oh, fuck no. His usual hygiene routine was putting on the same smelly clothes he wore the day before, combing some water through his greasy, gelled hair, grabbing a Monster and a sandwich from Wawa, which is all he ate. Sometimes also stopping long enough to cry about not being able to find his keys. Other than his crying, the first time I really saw this man-child / abusive personality was, I think, about a couple of months into the relationship. Kevin is a very deep sleeper. The only way he could get up for work is if he set 6 different alarms that could be turned off if he solved a puzzle. So when Mary and I would get up on Saturday or Sunday mornings, we would want to go do something fun with our day. We'd try to get Kevin up so that he could come with us, but he wouldn't budge. So we'd just leave him. This turns out it was a mistake. When he would wake up, he would call Mary asking where she was and why we would just leave him alone like that. We'd have to drive back to the house and pick him up. Usually he's waiting outside, half-dressed with bedhead and a pouty look on his face. Then I would have to spend the majority of the drive listening to him whine and cry about how sorry he was that he didn't wake up, and Mary giving him the silent treatment. The really trippy days were when they would get into some kind of fight about something or other, and Mary would say that she wanted to leave. She would come get me from wherever I was and would get in the car. He then comes running out of the house screaming for her not to go. Most of the time in his underwear. His 2 strategies for keeping her there were either getting in her car and refusing to get out until she had heard enough of a 20-something grown man crying for one night, or standing outside of the car yelling and shaking it until she had seen enough tears and snot run down this 300-pound man's face. This happened too many times for me to count. I always asked Mary why she dealt with him doing these things, and she would always casually reply with, "He spoils me, and he deals with my mood swings, so he can act like a baby sometimes." I was speechless at this. In my eyes, this was a very unhealthy relationship. Yeah. With a man that was obviously used to getting whatever he wanted if he cried enough. Oh yeah. This really bothered me, but I still went along whenever Mary went to his house. But ultimately, this is not the craziest or the shittiest thing he's done. Oh boy. A while longer into the relationship is when the crazy list gate breaks. I'm lying in bed after I'd gotten home from school. Mary calls me sobbing. She tells me that she had found out that Kevin had been sexting with women on Craigslist. Oh. He posted ads saying that him and his girlfriend were looking for a third for a threesome. He was sending dick pics and very explicit messages. Oh boy. I think she even said that he shared both of their real names to these strangers. I have always been bad at dealing with other people's emotions, but I'm trying my best to be there for her. I told her that she should just leave him, that she didn't need this in her life, and it's still cheating even if he didn't meet him in person. Mary is one of the strongest people that I know, and I was very surprised when she was that upset over breaking up with him. I thought they were over. I mean, it only made sense. If the guy you've been seeing was sexting with other people, and the most logical thing to do is to break up with him, right? Well, she did break up with him, and he went absolutely batshit. He again left many a voicemail and text, though this time he stepped it up a notch. He drove over to her house, parked like a maniac in the driveway, and started pounding on the door. When no one answered, he started to go around to all the windows, pounding on them and scream sobbing. I can hear him doing this over the phone while I'm talking to Mary, telling her not to let him in and tell him to just leave. Eventually her mom comes home and Kevin talks to her. She barely speaks English, but he tells her that Mary won't talk to him over a misunderstanding and that he really just wants to talk things out. She actually goes to Mary and says that she should talk to him and to not be cruel. Wow. His mastery of manipulation has convinced her mother that the situation is just Mary being mean to him. I think this is what really wears her down, and she hangs up the call with me at that point, and then they got back together. This, I believe, is the worst mistake Mary had made in her life up to this point. And I could go on forever about a ton of other things that happened over the years, like the time he threw a tantrum over not being able to finish putting together a gazebo in one night, or the time he almost got his cat killed. But since this is very long and it's currently 2 a.m., I'm going to skip ahead to my favorite Kevin story. At this point, I have graduated high school and have been living with Mary and Kevin and his dad for a while. I'm sorry. It was a typical weekday morning, and there's a huge pile of crap at the bottom of the stairs that we ignore because it's from Kevin's pit bull, and we want him to be the one to clean it up. Mary and I are chatting in the kitchen, the dogs are playing, birds are chirping, Kevin is screaming like a maniac around the house because he woke up late for work. He's been late so many times that it's only going to take once more before he gets fired. So he's running around the house with one leg in his pants, hyperventilating and swearing that someone moved his keys. He's getting more and more panicked by the second, sweating, crying, face red as a tomato, and slamming things around looking for his keys. He keeps giving me pointed looks like I was the one who moved them. I wasn't, by the way. This is such a normal occurrence that Mary and I keep talking and ignoring him. He eventually runs back downstairs, tripping and landing face first 5 inches away from the poop on the floor. I go silent in a mixture of horror, disgust, and fighting laughter. He gets up stoically and makes sure there's no poop on his face. There isn't. As soon as he realizes his face is clean, it's cartoonishly right back to screaming. But now he's angry. This humiliation and key thievery is too much to bear. He comes into the kitchen where we're sitting, and with both arms swipes everything off the counter, screaming, "I'm late for work!" The toaster, a pitcher of water, eggs, all on the floor. It's a huge mess. My jaw's on the floor. Never in my life have I seen this level of buffoonery from an adult, older than I was. I look over to Mary and say that I'm going to my room, and if she needs help with anything, just to call me. I book it upstairs and bust out laughing. From what I heard from Mary later is that she was forced to clean up the mess while he continued to wheeze and scream. Then he found his keys on the counter that he had knocked everything off of. They must have been under something. I'm completely done with these shenanigans, and for the rest of the time I lived there, I just tried to ignore him as much as I could. The story of the remainder of my time in this upside-down crazy place is going to have to wait for another post. I'm definitely going to end this here, although I still haven't gotten to the falling out yet. There was just so much I wanted to add to this story. I'm sorry if it was so long, and it wasn't even the most organized of events or thoughts, but I hope it was somewhat enjoyable. If anyone would like to hear the story about the gazebo or the cat, let me know and I'll include it in the next part. Goodbye for now, my internet family. Holy crap, this guy sounds like a fucking train wreck. Yeah, I want to hear all the stories. This was honestly kind of incredible. I had no idea that someone could be that fucking crazy. That is impressive levels of crazy. Wow. I just, oh man. And you had to live with these people. I'm sorry about that. That sucks, man. Whew. Just, He kind of sounds like a grosser, somewhat more adult version of Chris Chan. Like, just so self-entitled, never having to do anything, so very self-centered, but being forced to do stuff like work and actually has a lot of money. Can you imagine how bad Chris Chan would be if his parents were, like, super loaded? I can only imagine the horror that would have come out of that. But this video is really, really long, and this story was really good, so I look forward to reading more of it whenever you get a chance to write it. So thank you all for being here. If you enjoyed this, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this video, mainly because it pisses off YouTube, and I think that's kind of funny. And if you'd like to keep the lights on in this place so we can keep doing things like this, make sure to donate to Patreon or buy something from the merch store. Much like PBS, this show is sponsored by viewers like you. I love you all so very, very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!